It's midnight and you're tuning into Nightline with me, Muhammed, Ahmad, Hamdan. The top stories. ICU usage for COVID-19 patients in a few states at more than 50%. And PM's visit to Thailand expected to bring some good news. Good morning. The increasing number of COVID-19 infections has led to a steady increase in critical cases at intensive care units, ICUs, with usage going up by more than 50% in several states. Health Director General Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah said ICU usage had increased by more than half in Johor, Perlis and Kuala Lumpur. In Johor, ICU usage had increased by 70%, 64% in Perlis and 59% in Kuala Lumpur, while usage of non-critical ICU beds in Johor and Perak had breached the 100% mark. He said there were now 132 patients needing ventilators, adding that ventilator usage was at 36%. Nonetheless, Dr. Nur Hisham gave assurance that all state hospitals were coping with the situation. He said this is because most of them have contingency plans to handle the situation if cases rise critically. On Saturday, Malaysia hit a daily record high of 28,825 cases of COVID-19, bringing the country's cumulative total of infections to 3,194,848. Dr. Nur Hisham said of the 28,825 cases, 95% or 0.33% were in categories 3, 4 and 5. Dr. Nur Hisham said of the 168 new variants of concern cases reported from February 16th to 19th, 136 were Omicron and 33 were the Delta variant. In other news, Dr. Nur Hisham said 7 children aged 18 and below in Malaysia have died of multi-system inflammatory syndrome, or MIS-C, due to COVID-19 infections. MIS-C is a critical condition where inflammation occurs in the organs, particularly in the heart, lungs and brain. Dr. Nur Hisham said they were part of 174 children who experienced MIS-C after being infected with the coronavirus between June 2020 and December 2021. He added there were 24 cases of MIS-C among children under the age of 1, 38 cases involving children aged 1 to those under the age of 5, 64 cases involving those aged 5 to those under the age of 9, 36 cases involving those aged 9 to those under the age of 12, and 11 cases reported among those aged 12 and older. Children are also at risk of getting long COVID, which is COVID-19 syndrome after the acute phase of infection. As children are now at high risk of being infected with COVID-19, he said one of the main measures to reduce the risk was through self-discipline and vaccination. He said the vaccination of children aged 5 to 11 is timely to protect this group, especially children with comorbidities. The death rate for unvaccinated COVID-19 patients is significantly higher compared to those who have completed their vaccinations and those with booster shots. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin in a Twitter posting on Sunday said this was based on the data of deaths per 100,000 population according to vaccination status from January 1st until February 19th. According to Khairi, the data showed that the death rate for unvaccinated patients between the ages of 40 and 49 was 92.09 for every 100,000 people. Based on the data, the rate is far higher compared to the death rate of 3.08 for patients who have completed their vaccinations and 3.18 for those who have taken their booster shots for the same age category. For those aged 30 to 39, the death rate was 14 for every 100,000 people for unvaccinated patients, compared to 1.9 for those who have completed their vaccinations and 4.18 for those with booster shots. In his Twitter posting, Khairi also included the data for Category 3 to Category 5 cases per 100,000 population by the people vaccination status. He said that the data showed the effectiveness of the booster shot against the Omicron wave. Hence, he reminded the people to get their booster shots and stop reading nonsense conspiracy theories. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob's official visit to Thailand this week is expected to bring good news on the reopening of Thai-Malaysian land borders. Malaysian Ambassador to Thailand, Datuk Joji Samuel, said Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri's three-day visit, the first since he was appointed Prime Minister last August, was at the invitation of Thai Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha. This is also the first visit by a Malaysian Prime Minister to the kingdom since the start of the global COVID-19 pandemic 2 years ago. Datuk Joji said matters to be discussed during the visit included the reopening of land borders, bilateral cooperation and exploring trade and investment opportunities post-COVID-19. Datuk Joji added that there would be discussion on recognising vaccination certificates from both countries. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri is scheduled to go on the working visit from February 24th to 26th. Last week, Thai Foreign Affairs Ministry's deputy spokesman, Natapanu Nopakun, said Thailand was planning to reopen the Thai-Malaysia border in March to boost tourist arrivals, as Malaysian tourists have been the largest group of visitors to the kingdom before the COVID-19 pandemic. He said the Centre for COVID-19 Situation Administration and Tourism Emergency Operations Centre have been ordered to prepare and outline the pandemic mitigation measures for the reopening of the southern border provinces in the checkpoints of Songkhla, Narathiwat, Yala and Satun.
Yala AFF bawah 23. Semarakkan sokongan anda untuk Harimau Malaya hanya di TV9.
Moving on, government agencies, the private sector, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, government-linked companies, GLCs, and government-linked investment companies, GLICs, have been urged to collaborate to help execute the Samaranyagara Keluarga Malaysia program for the well-being of Keluarga Malaysia. Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri said such collaborations would create jobs to assist the rakyat in rebuilding their lives, provide support to affected businesses, and strengthen the country's social protection system. In a written interview on the Samaranyagara Keluarga Malaysia initiative on Saturday, the Prime Minister said the government is confident that this initiative will contribute to Keluarga Malaysia's recovery and the country's socio-economic development in a more balanced, inclusive and sustainable manner. The Prime Minister said Samaranyagara is the government's commitment to help businesses recover as well as gain their capabilities and competitiveness following the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly for micro, small and medium enterprises, MSMEs. Under Samaranyagara, he said the government has also provided 22 billion ringgit worth of guarantees through Syarikat Jaminan Pembiayaan Perniagaan as JPP, including 2 billion ringgit specifically for Bumiputra, making it easier for SMEs to apply for new financing that may otherwise be difficult to obtain. He said Samaranyagara initiative reflects the spirit of Keluarga Malaysia with measures that are open to the entire business community, from micro-enterprises to publicly listed companies. Hence, Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri encourages the business community to seize these opportunities to help them recover and get back on their feet, which in turn will support the country's socio-economic recovery efforts. Moving forward, he said the government remains committed to helping businesses recover as well as improving their resilience and competitiveness, particularly for MSMEs. The Finance Ministry is focusing on driving the country's financial recovery so that the people can return to normal life comfortably through several strategies such as creating jobs, bringing in investment and helping businesses. Its Minister, Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul Abdul Aziz, said the strategy to drive the country's financial growth was laid out through two main pillars, namely Jamin Kerja and Samaranyagara in Budget 2022, after the country was ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic. In a Facebook post on Sunday, Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul said the country is on the right track, where economic activity, whether from a macro, business or individual perspective, is gradually recovering rapidly based on indicators such as the job market and other factors. He also expressed confidence that the country can recover according to plan and generate the economy, hence continuing to bring confidence to investors to continue to come to Malaysia. Datuk Seri Tengku Zafrul was responding to former Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin's statement on the country's current financial situation. On Saturday, Tan Sri Muhyiddin was reported as saying that the country's finances were not as pretty as they had been made out to be, vowing to make further exposures on the matter soon. Dato' Sri Tengku Zafrul said the statement was in reference to a report he had submitted to Tan Sri Muhyiddin. He said it was a report given to the Secretariat of the National Recovery Council, just like other reports given by his colleagues in the cabinet, regardless of any party. Dato' Sri Tengku Zafrul asserted that the economic facts in the report were facts that had been mentioned repeatedly to the cabinet and the public. Tankab Azambaki rally probe papers sent to prosecutors. These and more home news when we return.
Tersisih daripada sebuah kebenaran dan kekhilafan lain kini menyiksa.
Abang tolong batalkan perkahwinan ni, bang.
Keputusan awak ni tak adil untuk Cahaya.
Terbitkah sinar bahagia untuk dirinya?
Mungkin jodoh saya jauh lagi baik daripada awak.
Ada ke lelaki yang nak dengan perempuan macam ni? Dengan perempuan pun nak cari gaduh ke?
Suamiku Lelaki Pendosa. Mulai 9 Februari, Isnin hingga Khamis 10 malam. Terbaharu di Samarinda TV3.
Welcome back. The Malayan tiger is now officially listed as critically endangered under the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species. It was reported that there are less than 300 Malayan tigers left in the world, and the number will continue to decline if no action is being taken. In fact, there are now even fewer opportunities to save the species due to deforestation and poaching. Alif Yunus has a story.
The Malayan tiger is a majestic creature which proudly flanks Malaysia's coat of arms, as well as the iconic symbol of national pride for all Malaysians. Therefore, it is quite alarming that the species is expected to become extinct within the next decade. Worldwide Fund for Nature WWF Malaysia Team Lead for Tiger Habitat Conservation, Christopher Wong, said the loss of habitat and food sources resulting from land use changes, hunting and illegal trade in animals were some of the elements which is pushing this species towards the verge of extinction.
When we speak about logging as well, there's this indirect threat that also contributes to a biggest threat to the survival of the tigers, which is the poaching. When an area is being logged, logging roads are being built into the forest. All these create opportunity and easy access for encroachers, for poachers to be in the forest to remove wildlife of their target. And this is definitely a really real threat to the tigers.
Commenting on claims that selective logging will not affect the tiger's habitat, he said that further studies need to be done on the matter as the impact of such activities on the species is not yet clearly understood. And he believes that other wildlife species might also be affected by selective logging. In January, Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob initiated a National Tiger Conservation Task Force (MyTTF) as the government is serious in tackling the issue of a depleting Malayan tiger population. According to Department of Wildlife and National Parks Peninsula Malaysia Perkhidmatan Wildlife Conservation Director Taufik Abdul Rahman, the initiative will be implemented through 6 approaches including boots on the ground operation by Perkhidmatan, police, the armed forces and orang asli community.
If we look at the strategic actions in the National Tiger Conservation Task Force (MyTTF), in the first meeting as announced by the Prime Minister, the efforts to save this majestic species requires everyone to play their part.
Taufik also said that Perkhidmatan is currently working with several zoos and agencies which will be responsible to plan, manage, conduct and coordinate wildlife captive breeding programs of these critically endangered species. The heavy task of protecting the Malayan tiger and conservation of the species is not just about saving the animal, To lose the Malayan tiger to extinction is also similar to losing our national pride and identity. Alif Yunus, TV3.
The investigation papers on the Tankab Azambaki rally have been referred to the Deputy Public Prosecutor's DPP office in Putrajaya and Kuala Lumpur. In confirming the matter, Brickfield's District Police Chief Amihizam Abdul Shukur said police are still waiting for further instructions from the DPP's office. On January 22nd, hundreds of participants dressed in black joined the rally, and some were seen carrying banners reading Lawan and Lawan Korupsi, while others carried helmets as they marched and chanted Tolak Azambaki. Police only allowed them to march from the Bangsa LRT station in Jalan Bangsa towards the Brickfields Junction, about 600 meters away, and after more than an hour, the rally participants dispersed peacefully. In Melaka, police are still investigating the motive behind an apparent murder-suicide after the remains of a man and a woman were found at a house in Taman Merdeka, Batu Berendam on Saturday evening. Melaka Tengah District Police Chief ACP Christopher Patit said preliminary investigations found more than 4 stab wounds on the body of the 22-year-old woman who was found lying in a pool of blood. Police had earlier received information from friends of the woman who said that the victim had called for help during an altercation with her partner. However, they were not able to enter the house as it was locked, leading them to alert the police. Christopher said early investigations found that the man is believed to have stabbed the female victim to death before taking his own life, adding that police found a knife on his body. Police also believe that the man may have tried to consume kerosene as he was foaming at the mouth, besides traces of kerosene found near his body. Both remains were then sent to the Melaka Hospital Forensic Department for post-mortem, and the case is being investigated under Section 302 of the Penal Code. And over in Selangor, a man wanted by police for his suspected involvement in a fight in Serdang Perdana Seri Kembangan on Saturday night that resulted in a woman's death has surrendered himself to police. Serdang District Police Chief A.A. Anbalagan said the local man, aged 33, said to be the woman's boyfriend, turned himself in at the Serdang District Police Headquarters on Sunday morning. The motive for the killing was jealousy. Anbalagan also said the suspect, a lorry driver, tested negative for drugs and that the police are investigating the case under Section 302 of the Penal Code. On Saturday, a 29-year-old woman was found dead, believed to have been slashed to death in a fight at her business premises. Russia, Belarus extend huge military exercises. The details when we return.
Disakiti dan dikongkong, itulah yang bagaikan tercatat dalam hidup Alisa.
Assalamualaikum. Bye, I gotta go.
Namun setelah bertemu dengan Zain, bahagia mulai tertulis untuknya.
Kau izinkan aja Pak Alisa tu kahwin dengan Zain. Jadi aku janji nanti aku akan tukar nama rumah ni. Sekarang.
3 Nota Cinta, Isnin hingga Jumaat 7 malam, terbaru di Akasia TV3.
Foreign front, Russia and Belarus's massive joint military drills will be extended and will not end on February 20th as planned. In confirming the matter, Belarus's defense minister said the decision had been taken in connection with the increase in military activity near the external borders of Russia and Belarus and due to the rising tension in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine. According to NATO, Russia has up to 30,000 troops in Belarus and could use them as part of an invasion force to attack Ukraine, although Moscow denies any such intention. Previously, Russia had said it would return troops to their bases after the training exercises, which were scheduled to finish on Sunday. The allies have been conducting the drill since February 10th near the border with Ukraine, as well as close to Poland and Lithuania, both NATO members, in a move that further intensifies pressure on Kyiv as Western leaders warn of an imminent Russian invasion. And in other news, Australia will welcome international tourists on Monday after nearly 2 years of sealing its borders, relying on high COVID-19 vaccination rates to live with the pandemic as infections decline. According to officials, fully vaccinated tourists will not need to quarantine, but those who are not double-dosed will require a travel exemption to enter the country and will be subject to state and territory quarantine requirements. Whether travellers will flock back to the island continent, dubbed Fortress Australia for its strict border controls, remains to be seen. Australia's opening to tourists is the clearest example yet of the government's shift from a strict zero-COVID approach to living with a virus and vaccinating the public to minimise deaths and severe illness. Hong Kong is in all-out combat to contain a surge in coronavirus cases with a ramping up of community isolation and treatment units helped by mainland Chinese construction teams. In what was seen as a rebuke to the Hong Kong authorities' handling of the spiraling outbreak, Chinese President Xi Jinping said fighting the virus must now be their overriding mission. At the moment, the city's public hospitals are severely stretched and are struggling to cope with an influx of patients, including the elderly, many of whom have resisted vaccinations. Scenes of people lying outside public hospitals in the rain and chilly weather have shocked many in the global financial hub, leading to an apology from authorities, and officials have now organized facilities to shelter patients amid a drop in temperatures as healthcare facilities are overwhelmed. Western United's Garuccio stuns football world with world-class scorpion kick goal. Sports up next.
Disakiti dan dikongkong, itulah yang bagaikan tercatat dalam hidup Alisa.
Assalamualaikum. Bye, I gotta go.
Namun setelah bertemu dengan Zain, bahagia mulai tertulis untuknya.
Kau izinkan aja Pak Alisa tu kahwin dengan Zain. Jadi aku janji nanti aku akan tukar nama rumah ni. Sekarang.
3 Nota Cinta, Isnin hingga Jumaat 7 malam, terbaru di Akasia TV3.
Sports. A tenacious Malaysian men's badminton team stamped their superiority in the region by winning the Badminton Asia Team Championships 2022 after beating favourites Indonesia 3-0 on Sunday. National ace Lee Zijia gave Malaysia a flying start by defeating Chico Aura Dwi Wardoyo in the opening match despite a stuttering start in the first game, losing 14-21. However, the 24-year-old Zijia picked himself up in the next 2 games by winning convincingly 21-12, 21-10. The jubilant Malaysian fans were in store for another fascinating win when the nation's top doubles pair Aaron Chia So Wui Yik defeated the Indonesian pair of Konando LR Martin D 17-21, 21-13, 21-18 to give Malaysia a commanding lead. The pair, who have won all their matches in this tournament, never gave their opponents any chance in the last two games after losing the first by leading all the way. In the second singles, Ng Ze-yong showed confidence from the start, despite knowing the team and the nation were eagerly expecting him to win the winning point against Indonesia's 22-year-old Iksan Rumbai. The Malaysian did not disappoint the crowd when he led all the way to win 21-14 in the first game. In the second game, Ng proved to be too formidable for his opponent, winning easily 21-15. This was the best ever performance of the Malaysian men's team, who finished runners-up in the 2020 tournament since the inception of the championship in 2016. On to football. Western United star Ben Garuccio has stunned the Australian football world with a remarkable scorpion kick goal in his side's 3-2 win over Western Sydney Wanderers on Sunday. The win takes United a point clear of Melbourne City with one game in hand. United were devastating off the break early in the piece and made the most of their chances, with both Alexander Prijovic and Garuccio hitting the scoreboard before half-time. However, a slew of second-half changes helped swing the pendulum in the Wanderers' favour, and their push was rewarded when Ahmad brought one back from the spot before Garuccio's incredible goal helped to take the sting out of the game. Standing just outside the 6-yard box, Garuccio used his left leg to reach a ball that was just behind his head and chipped it past Daniel Margish for a 3-1 lead. Steven Ugarkovic pulled another back for Western Sydney, but it proved to be too late as Western held on to all 3 points. The win takes United a point clear of Melbourne City, while Western Sydney remained 6 points outside the top 6. After a year's absence, the party atmosphere returned to the city of Nice as it welcomed back its annual Carnival parade, where spectators packed out to watch as the French city came to life with colourful floats parading through the streets. This year's theme, held over from last year, was King of Animals and saw many of the floats decorated in tribute to members of the animal kingdom. Let's take a look as we wrap up Nightline this time around. I'm Muhammed, Hamdan. Thanks for watching and stay safe.